You are listening to a Clarkesworld Magazine podcast with your host and narrator, Kate Baker. Greetings, Clarkesworld citizens. I hope this podcast finds you extraordinarily well. This is our third story for the month of April 2023, issue 199. How have you been enjoying the stories thus far? How has April been treating you? The weather's starting to get warmer, at least where I am. So I'm spending a little bit more time out in the sun when I can breathe from all the other work that I've been doing. I appreciate your patience in getting these podcasts out. And once again, thank you for your ongoing support of the magazine. If you'd like to continue to support us, please go to patreon.com/Clarkesworld. Our story is titled Rake the Leaves and is by R.T. Ester. R.T. Ester, who can be found at the website rtwrites.com, does some writing on the side while working professionally as a visual designer. However, most of his time is spent raising two young kids with his wife and drawing any inspiration he can find from the Texas heat. His writing has appeared or is forthcoming in Clarkesworld and Interzone. And if you like what you hear, we've got 3 other stories by R.T. Ester: Ananias Gets a Turn, Slight Forms, and Meddling Fields. So, my dear listener, I hope you can sit back, relax, and let me tell you a story. Were you followed? I made plenty of stops like you told me to. Were you followed? No. Are you sure not one traffic cop drone hitched itself to your flight path? Professor, I drove here. So it would appear. It's dark in the boonies. Our vehicles sit an arm's length apart. With both our windows slightly down, we only see each other's eyes. The professor looks unsettled. What's on your mind? I ask him. Had a dream, Bodhi. Dream? Lights went out when we were on your front stoop, enjoying the night breeze. One of us had put the request in to have someone come look at the generator. That would have been me, Professor. Would have been Kaleche. Or me? Focus, Bodhi. Sorry. The dream. Lights had gone out and we were on your stoop. That's when I heard it. Heard what, Professor? Dinah Ross, 1980. Coming from my basement. Professor, that would be impossible with the lights going out. You still have that hardware that need the generator or else they don't work? Down, side up. Boy spinning me. That's how it goes. How it went for a half hour, on repeat. We ran out of malts from your commissary, so I went home to have a look in mine. That's when I saw him. Saw who, Professor? Younger me, right in my basement. Dancing. Dancing? Down, side up, putting his back in it. Fly, motherfucker. What did he want, Professor? Hell if I knew. All he did was dance. Then he turned and looked at me. Then the lyrics changed. Something different from what we're used to. Different how? I get closer to the glass and my ears perk up. This is already too much. Bodhi, if I could recall everything in these dreams, we would have had the whole thing figured out by now. All right, Professor. What I can tell you is what he said to me. What did he say? Rake the leaves. I bang my knee against the door. Rake the leaves? Rake the leaves, Bodhi. His eyes bulge as he says this, to the song's tune. What the? Now, Bodhi, you know I hate raking the leaves. I don't like it either. But Sylvain's always on me about it. Kalechi, too. I could beg and plead. I could remind him I've got a bad back. Doesn't matter. Every Tuesday and Friday. Get out there and rake those leaves. Get everything inside the target square so the EPC drone can tractor beam all of it. Except the drone wants more than just leaves. A whole lot more, Bodhi. I pinch my eyes together. This is all too much. Why would your younger self want you raking the leaves? Because he's from the main, trying to get something across to us both. How do you figure that? I gathered as much from the words in that song. Dinah Ross. Dinah Ross and the superiors? Rake the leaves, Bodhi. Professor, I don't... Listen to Kalechi. She says rake the leaves, rake the leaves. But I don't like raking the leaves. There's more on the line now, Bodhi. There's a message coming from the main. All right, Professor. Damn. My heart begins hammering a rhythm. This could be the missing piece. If not that, maybe the next step. We're getting close. All right. Rake the leaves. All right. Damn. Be seeing you, Bodhi. His Dodge Caprice peels away, kicking up a whirl of dust in the twilight. Drive safe, Professor. Tuesday morning's to-dos. Boot up the mesh. Log into Professor Playhead's vault. Download the latest drop. Boost the low band. Listen in reverse. Start work. Baby, is there something you're forgetting? Rake the leaves. Rake the leaves, then boot up the mesh. Our little row house is 2 stories and a basement. We have the woods to our backs. We have red oaks with crowns that whistle at night when the wind passes through, loud and impolite. In the morning, evidence of their intercourse is strewn all over the backyard. Kalechi pecks me on the lips as she scurries out. Dinner is ramen from the commissary, she says over her shoulder. She hurtles down the stoop, clambers into the work van waiting outside. I take a mental picture of her smile through the glass. I'm retreating inside when Sylvain waves at me from his stoop across the street. Bonjour. Bonjour, Sylvain. His aloof manner is evident in his dour expression this morning. Do you know where my Patrice went Sunday evening? Patrice is Professor Playhead. Sunday evening was our confab by the docks. No. In the basement, I snag a pouch of my preferred roast from the commissary. The aroma of it brewing fills the air while I pull cable across the room to a tile that conceals the port linking our home to the mesh. The coffee sears the tip of my tongue as the hard drives soak up the latest and pirated IP. Penalties for downloading them range from stern warnings to stints at the Institute, complete with a memory wipe. Kalechi swears. I've never had one, but I suspect it's just so I have one less excuse for always forgetting important dates. I adjust my eyeglasses, scooting my chair in as the welcome message from Professor Playhead's vault fills the screen. The latest comes courtesy of Hal Green. 1972. Let's never break up. The professor talks often about something he calls the quantum band, a frequency that passes waves of sound between parallel realities. After downloading the MP3 file, I cue it inside my digital workstation. My headphones go on. I reverse the track, boost the low frequency range, and hit the spacebar. Wum, schneer, they, wub, shaha, ariswen, shene, wum, huzz, tight, third, shun, shan, yam, shun. I yank the headphones off and I almost scream. Another speculation confirmed. The year is 2039. I listen over and over until the morning escapes me and the whir of the EPC drone almost goes unnoticed. I run outside, trip over an edging stone between the hibiscuses and the rest of the yard. The rake lands beside me. I peel my face off the grass and I see I'm actually in luck because the EPC drone is still above the Jansens 6 houses away. When it gets to me, I've managed only to gather a molehill of leaves inside the 11 by 11 foot target square. The drone casts a shadow over me that feels like malice. I back a safe distance from the square's chalk outline and let it do its thing. It's up to its usual tricks. I know this because a minute goes by without the hum from the vacuum underneath. The number of complaints filed this year with the EPC has doubled the tally from all previous years of the drone program combined. They're overwhelmingly from folks like me with aversion to drones, so the EPC has never moved with urgency to address them. I appraise this one's beetle-shaped hull, floating in the air like judgment in all black. its rotors whirring, its sensors surely tagging me as trash that's different from the trash it came here to scoop up. I've seen its act. I know its modus operandi. It wants me to pack more leaves into the square till I have nearly all of them gathered. Then it can pretend it's allowed me the usual wait period, then bounce to the next house without taking the leaves because I stood too close to the square. No, I won't fall for it. If it's just going to leave without the leaves, I won't rake any more of them. Squaring my shoulders, I take another step back. My mind goes to Kalechi's smile this morning and stays there till I remember I'm doing this for her, so I don't add to the accrued stresses from her day at the warehouse when she gets back. I think of Professor Playhead across the street now in his den, converting more of his record collection to MP3s. He hears the stuff embedded in the quantum band first, then he waits for me and a few others to confirm we've heard it as well. The year is 2039. The Institute wound the clock back 9 years. They may have also bumped us off the main timeline. If the professor also wants me to rake the leaves, I better rake the leaves. I'm dragging the last clump of foliage across the chalk when the vacuum comes on. The pull is so powerful that I can't move my feet because I may then find myself carried up with the leaves. There's a host of them falling up, red and withered brown in the late morning's light, sucked into the machine's gaping maw in a way that makes me wish I left Kalechi a note before coming out here. My eyeglasses begin floating up from me, joining the leaves and vanishing behind the chasm under the drone. Hey! The last time this happened, it was my wallet. I got it back. There was nothing in it to start with, but it was a lesson with value you can't fit inside a wallet. The EPC will continue to sit idle when its drones take more than just the leaves. When the leaves raptured, the vacuum shuts off. I wait 1 minute because 1 minute is typically enough time for the drone to process my expression as anything but gratitude. There's a faint flash. Something falls out, then lands without event on the square's edge, where a parched thicket of grass is located. The frames glint mutedly. The lenses are cracked. Professor. He draws a curtain slightly so he can see me from across the street. Talk to me, Bodhi. At a window downstairs, I switch the phone to my right ear. Guess what happened to me this morning? You know I don't like playing guessing games. Sylvain asked where you were Sunday evening. The curtain closes, then opens again. His always calculating stare meets the glass. What did you tell him? I told him we were together by the docks. You know, Bodhi, you play too much for someone who should know everything we say in here is being picked up. Maybe so, but it'd be worth the laugh if he ever falls for it. I listened to the latest, and I can confirm it's exactly as you described, meaning it's all there in the quantum band. Well, that makes 4 of us who have given the Reverend a big thumbs up. Halbert Green, 1972. I take a second to consider my ordeal this morning, then my mind swings back to Sunday evening. What's in a dream, Professor? Not a whole lot. Message in a bottle. Except this bottle appears to be moving against its hide. So it would appear, Bodhi. How do you explain that? I don't know. Maybe it isn't something that needs explaining right now. Someone might need one. We'll cross that bridge when it's time, Bodhi. Professor, did you rake the leaves this morning? No. Professor? Boy, if you don't get off my back. I'm doubled over when a squad car belonging to Traffic Corps zooms through the street between us, lime green with a siren solar panel contraption on its roof. The professor turns to watch it go, then a grave look comes over him. You may not be seeing me for a while, Bodhi. I draw as much as I can from his morose expression. What do you mean? He's the most cautious he's ever been these last few weeks. I'm saying there may already be a bed at the Institute with my name on it. I cut a whistle at that, unable to find words to tell him he's being his usual paranoid self. A memory wipe is something that happens to people you hear about till it happens to someone you actually know. Check on Sylvain for me now and then, he says. And by that I mean have Kalechi do it. Copy that, Professor. Kalechi brings the salty aroma of miso down the stairs with her, my specialty. Before turning for my first look at her since this morning, I remove my glasses and place them on my desk. She's behind me with her coveralls still on. Her locks are less tidy than they were this morning. Her face is filmed with sweat from either the work van or the kitchen upstairs. She's lost in thought for a second. Then, Baby, what do you think about adding okras? Well, that would make it draw soup, Kels. Quick with the answer. I made a real effort with this one, followed the recipe to the letter. Noodles and draw soup? No, it won't. I brace for an evening of experimentation and discovery. All right. Whenever okras from the neighborhood garden hit the commissaries, it's always a race to see how fast we can get rid of them. As I'm spinning my chair back, she closes in. I assume she's found something on my screen that warrants attention. Normally, it's the window that displays the amount of hours I've been working. My baby doesn't play. Once the 9-hour mark is hit, that's a hard stop. Traffic Corps can wait till tomorrow if they want me to answer my request to speak with a human. Baby, whose glasses are those? I lock eyes on my bifocals where they are on the desk. Oh, yeah. The cracks in the lenses were surprisingly easy to adjust to. Guess what happened to me this morning? You bought a new pair and they're already damaged? It's that EPC drone. I turned to regard her again. I keep telling you, it's... Bodhi, those are not your glasses. What? Her expression is grim enough to have me doubting my own ability to see, so I whip my head back and bring it down. I'm squinting at the horn-rimmed temples and round lenses when she hooks her finger under the bridge and lifts it off the desk. Baby, when we traveled last summer, you got a pair of Oaklands. I crane my neck toward her. Light from the bulb over this corner of our basement bleeds through the lenses. The cracks convert it to a pattern like cobwebs on my upturned face. Except for them, my Oaklands look no different than they did when I slid them on this morning. Kalechi makes like she's putting them on me, but turns them sideways when she's inches from my eyes. I read the letters on the left temple. I throw myself against my backrest. Kels. I know. She rolls her eyes, the same compliment every time. My eyesight. No. I collect the glasses when she nudges them forward. I mean, I know you're tired of hearing it, but is there time for it again? You look at me and see what nobody else can. She folds her arms. She wants what comes next to be a frown, but her lips curl up instead. There's time. So the drone took your Oaklands, and when you asked for it back, it gave you knockoffs instead? That's the easy explanation. Reading the letters again, I'm back to questioning my eyesight. I go around my desk to the door beside it and the closet stacked with hardware on the other side. What are you doing? With the cable in my hand, I make a dash for the tile at the other end of the basement. I'm gonna ask if anyone's heard of this brand. Kalechi follows me with her stare. You need the mesh for that? The tile is raised, and I'm already kneeling when it dawns that I should ask my baby's permission before making her a passenger on this trip to Fringe Town. On my feet again, I drop the cable beside me unplugged. While rounding her eyes at me, her phone comes out of her coveralls. She holds it up for me to see a search bar in the center of the screen, the fact finder of choice for people who would rather not spend all hours inside a basement. With patience, I'll be sure to brag to her about later. I bow my head and gesture my assent. Find anything? She's down-scrolling. Her face is furrowed, and she's biting her top lip. I could stare at the cleft in her chin for hours, but maybe not this evening. I shuffle toward her, getting in close so I can see what she sees. The search has returned everything from Oakley Robotics to Oakley Finishing School. At the very top, a line of text asks if we meant to enter Oakland Eyewear into the search. Kalechi is either spooked now or indulging me as she sometimes does. Without another word to me, she darts upstairs with okras and a box of rice noodles. The cable goes into the port. Let's never break up. During a visit across the street, the professor let us hear that one from his speakers. Kalechi gave me a look I hadn't seen in years. The mesh is almost dead this evening. An abundance of caution in recent weeks has made it so no one keeps their node active for longer than necessary for a pickup or drop-off. I won't be one to talk. I load my password-protected instance of the forum for general questions, update it with the latest from the few active nodes this evening, and add mine to the queue. Anyone heard of an eyewear brand named Oakley? She returns with 2 steaming bowls and places mine on the desk. There's a kiss, long overdue since she got back. There's a taste of warehouse wafers from this afternoon on her lips. She sinks into the recliner behind me and looks on, her legs folded under her, while I'm glued to the screen and my food gets cold. Any luck? I shake my head. Another browser refresh returns 2 new answers. No. At BW98. This question should be asked in the Mandela Effect room. Consider taking it down before anyone else checks in. Maybe also send a recall request. While Kalechi downs a spoonful of tofu, I dial the professor. He's rarely on the mesh if it isn't to upload a newly digitized record from his collection. Maybe he's heard of this brand. Maybe in another of his dreams. Maybe the next drop will have a jingle in the quantum band similar to the jingle for Oakland Eyewear. Look your best in Oakland specs. The call goes to voicemail. How's the professor doing? Asks Kalechi. Did you hear something? Well, Sylvain stopped me on my way in. He wanted to know where you all went Sunday evening. Oh. Standing, I walk across to the commissary, our modest pantry that opens on the other side to a delivery van above ground. Well, you know Sylvain. From the fridge compartment, I grab 2 bottles of malt delivered here from the Jansens. If Sylvain learns the professor has been sharing unauthorized copies of his records, we may never hear them again. I'm going to tell him, Kalechi says. Her words send a chill through me as I'm shutting the doors to the commissary. Kels. I fix my eyes pleadingly on her. Briefly, she looks abrasive, then she breaks, laughing with so much of her body she almost spills her ramen. You should see how you look right now. While fishing an opener out of my pocket, I sense that I'm sulking. It's not funny. What did the professor have you listening to this morning? We clink the bottles and I'm backing toward my desk. She'll like this one. Let's never break up. Hal Green. Her bottle finds her lips and comes back down. I remember that one. Hard to forget. What was in the, quantum band? My butt meets my chair. I grin ear to ear because it's such a joy whenever my baby indulges me. Baby, facing her, I put the malt down and reach for my ramen. What year is it? 2030, she answers in her reserved manner. I mimic a buzzer in response. What compels me to do this? Kalechi is very accommodating. She makes a face that says, "Excuse me?" The year. I stuff my mouth full of soup. The okras were a good choice. Is 2039. Kalechi pulls out her poker face for this one. Okay. I'm almost shoveling noodles in my mouth, but this is more pressing than the growl in my stomach. Now, the bowl goes back on the desk. I don't know if you remember where we left off. You all think the Institute is trying to cover up something that happened in 21. Massive explosion at the facility up north, technically 2030. Did unusual things to the fabric of what we perceive as reality. Like changing the words to every song? Lot more than that. Okay, so... She adjusts her posture and I can see the wheels begin to spin in her mind. We got bumped off the main timeline. Uh-huh. And now you're all saying we also got bumped back? Not us, Kels. The quantum band. So in the main timeline, I'm actually 41 right now? Same as me. She's catching on fast, but her expression turns sour all of a sudden. I don't want to be 41, Bodhi. Her words leave me mortified while I do my best to hide it. You don't have to be. There's still a lot I want to do before that. Nobody said you have to be 41, Kels. 'Cause I'll call your mama right now and tell her she's not getting any grandkids. What? Oh, she's fucking with me again, getting too good at it. Baby, whoever in the main timeline planted this stuff in the quantum band wanted us to hear it. That's all we want. The truth and nothing but. She reclines her chair back slightly and yawns. All right. We're getting close. You believe me, right? Her smile at me is measured, but I'll take anything I can get. Refresh the page again. See if anyone else has answered. As I turn for another look, it dawns that I've slid the glasses back on, but I don't remember when. Everything looks like it belongs, but once you catch something that doesn't, you begin to look everywhere else. The glasses come off again, and I scrunch my face at them. Nothing new to report. Come to bed, Bodhi. Wednesday morning's to-dos. Boot up the mesh. Baby, you left it on all night. I did, didn't I? Log into Professor Playhead's vault. Download the latest drop. Boost the... Bodhi, you may want to come see this. Kalechi is putting on her earrings in front of a window upstairs. Normally she does this in front of a mirror, so I'm already petrified when I join her. On the ground, 6 vans are parked in front of the professor's house, all black and unmarked. Through his front door, people in gray suits file out, stacks of boxes in their hands. Shit. What looks like a commotion begins to take shape in the window beside the door, Sylvain in one of the gray suits. It takes less than a minute for Kalechi to charge through our front door. I'm stumbling down the stoop after her because I'd rather not draw any heat toward us before I've had time to figure out what's going on. She's a force to be reckoned with when she's indignant. In her coveralls and the scarf around her locks, she marches past the vans and the gray suits loading them up, going inside the professor's house to rescue Sylvain. I hang back once she's past the entrance, smile and wave at the boys in gray. I wish you would try that with me, she yells at the person restraining Sylvain. I smile so broadly at the gray suits, I might pull a muscle. They're looking at me like I put her up to it. I don't even like Sylvain that much. Just as quickly as she slipped through the entrance, she's guiding the old recluse out. He's wrapped in a duvet and looks helplessly in need of sleep. While following Kalechi to our front stoop, he shakes his mane of white hair out of his eyes. Kalechi, they took my Patrice yesterday night, and now they're back for his stuff. A fever comes over me as Kalechi pulls him in for a hug. You can stay with us for as long as you need. Normally I would complain about not being consulted before she decided that, but my mind is adrift. The professor was right to be worried. No more oldies, no more sonic excursions through the quantum band. They'll bring him back in a few weeks. Everything from our chat yesterday to him coming over to help unload the U-Haul 2 years ago will be wiped from his memory. We came so close. Mr. Whitaker. Hearing my name in such a level tone startles me. Across the street, a man in a long coat and fedora looks sternly at me, his minions still loading the vans behind him. Sorry, do we know each other? He pays me a mendacious smile. Are we due for another house call? Thursday morning's to-dos. Boot up the mesh. Log into Professor Playhead's no. Cross that out. Post an eyewitness account of yesterday. Ask in the Mandela effect room if anyone knows the Oakley brand. Look up listings for turntables with a built-in audio interface. Spend some time with Sylvain. Spend a minute with Sylvain. Start work. I find Sylvain hunched over the hibiscuses in the yard. He has a pair of shears with him, straw hat on his head, and shawl draped over his shoulders. Sylvain. Bonjour, Bodhi. How are you? Oh, you know. He hasn't stared up from the blooms in front of him, which is unfortunate. because if he did, he would see me at the door with a look of genuine concern. Yesterday, with him skulking around upstairs while I worked, was trying. Kalechi says we're both dealing with loss. He's known the professor longer than I have. Maybe she's right. How are you holding up? He stands up straight, still refusing me a glance. He raises the shears. You think Kalechi would mind if I gathered a few calices? She would not, but it's important. He thinks it's me extending him the courtesy on my own. Kalechi's hibiscus tea has become a staple in every commissary on our street. Knock yourself out. It isn't long before I'm having to follow him around while he eyes the stems, occasionally dropping a sepal he's plucked on the tray in my hands. If there ever was a time for that long-delayed tete-a-tete, it's now. So, what are we doing about the professor's memory loss when he gets back? Well, I know what I am doing, he says, giving me his back as the shears bite into another stem. I knew it 2 years ago when he first started listening to that song. Based on how often the professors had us listen to it, hoping to find something that doesn't appear to be there, I take a guess. Down, side up, over and over. He stops and twirls a finger in the air. Finally, he cranes his neck for a look at me. He found a hidden message in it, no? On his pale skin are wrinkles that weren't there 2 years ago when we first greeted each other from our front stoops. Daylight leaks through the brim of his hat like freckles around his eyes. Not knowing how much the professor shared with him, I conclude this is a normal thing to ask. Not to my knowledge, I tell him, my God-honest truth. He spares me a toothy grin and returns to the hibiscuses. I've documented all our moments together at home. When he gets back, we'll look through everything. Patrice is the worst paranoiac I know, but he used to trust me before he went crazy with that song. If that's how far back they go with the wipe, I get my old Patrice back. That's sweet, but also kind of fucked up. I don't know. I need time to decide. Kalechi would never think something like that if the Institute scheduled me for a memory wipe. Sylvain whips his head back with disdain that appears meant for me. Bodhi, what you need is to tell me everything my Patrice shared with you that he kept from me. What? Oui. Yes, Bodhi. He points the shears at me, and I take a step back. If you also want your old Patrice back, your Professor Playhead, then you should see the upside in it. He won't remember who you are when he gets back. I mean, think about it. He's making sense, but I won't let him hear that from me. He collects the tray, then sorts through it with his gloved hand while my urge to infer how much he knows becomes hard to ignore. He's almost at the door when I find the courage. They took all his records. He stops under the transom where the sweet potato vines Kalechi put in my care have bunched into leafy green drapes. No, those are still intact. Oh? My hands go to my hips while he throws me a sidelong glance. Either I misheard him or he just made a joke. What those boxes had in them were books he authored while we were researchers at the university, he says. I don't know how much he's told you about that time in his life. He was in quantum mechanics. His focus was the many worlds proposition, but his contribution to it was dismissed as, how do you say, He licks his teeth and smiles flatly at me. Bunk. His meaning comes through just fine in the accent, but I have to pretend it doesn't. Otherwise, I'll be admitting too much. If that's why the Institute raided their home, it may still confirm we were on the right track. I feign the usual ignorance at him. What was his contribution? He believed information travels between worlds similar to each other. He wrote a lot of things in support of that. Things no one read but me. Now the Institute has all of it. The door swings shut behind him while I wonder how much of those writings he retained. Maybe the professor was wrong to exclude him from all of this. Friday morning to-dos. Rake the leaves. What's in a dream? Some on the mesh believe dreams are windows into worlds existing alongside our own. I haven't had a dream I remembered since the explosion that supposedly never was. What's in a song? For those of us who knew there was more to the professor's vault than music from a bygone age, a song represented a bridge. Except that bridge only allowed traffic through in one direction. That, at least, is what I previously thought. My question regarding the Oakley brand has yielded nothing to dissuade me from thinking a similar bridge now exists inside the EPC drone that serves the subdivision of the Memphis suburbs. My Oaklands are across the bridge. The rake is in my hand and there are leaves throughout the yard. When the drone brings its shadow over the target square, there's a heap inside it all the way to my knees. Atop the heap, there's a record. Sylvain hobbled across the street for it last night. From a folding chair beside the sweet potato vines, he looks on with his windswept hair. Any feeling he has toward this caged inside a frown. Should you be so close to it? I take a step back. The breeze this morning threatens to flick the record off the heap. It's inside a sleeve with only the professor's loopy handwriting on it. Downside up. Dinah Ross. There's a stillness around the drone, even as its rotors slice the air. An oriole flies over it, and I can swear it glitches the second it emerges from the other side. With his arms folded, Sylvain heaves a perfunctory sigh, crosses his legs. When I call him down to the basement yesterday and told him everything, he swore at me a bunch, or said words that sounded like it. Then he suggested this. I can't decide if he means to spite the professor by feeding the record to the drone. He says it may be the professor on the other side. The vacuum comes on. The leaves begin to whirl under its hum. The record falls almost to the ground, then joins the upward drift, steady as it kites toward the drone. The flash when they meet is serene, consuming everything for a few seconds. When I'm able to see again, there's a record already on the ground. Kalechi's overalls have the epoxy odor from the warehouse when she enters the basement. Hunched with Sylvain over a new device on my desk, I don't immediately see her. She hitches her hands to her hips when I turn. This is a surprise. Baby. I fall in my chair and scoot it toward her. Me and Sylvain. We did something this morning. Bonsoir, Kalechi. Sylvain waves without looking. Bodhi has made an understatement. Minutes ago, he crossed the street again and came back with the professor's turntable. We wanted to wait till you got back. I lift the record sleeve from the desk and stand it on my lap so she can see the professor's scribble on it. Her expression betrays nothing as she eyes it. Baby, what am I looking at? A gift. I'm tickled beyond belief. From across the bridge. My right foot is restless against the floorboard. She ganders at the sleeve while Sylvain fidgets with wires behind the turntable. Finally, she looks up. Diana Ross? Sylvain drops the needle. For a few seconds, it's the same song we know. Then the artist begins her croon. Kalechi folds her arms. Bodhi. Swear to God, Kells, I'm not messing with you. It's my first time hearing these lyrics as well. Around the half-minute mark, Sylvain collapses into his folding chair. First, it appears he's fainted, then he cranes an enraptured glance around the room. Oh, mon Dieu. Sylvain, are you all right? Kalechi begins to ask, but becomes wobbly on her feet. Her eyes glaze over. Oh. She staggers back till her body hits the recliner and she sits, fingers clawing into the armrests. Baby, what's going on? I ask, heart pounding. I'm remembering, Bodhi. Her eyes twitch and roam in an uncontrolled fashion. So much. The chill courses through me. My vision swirls, and with the song playing, I see the explosion. I'm at a window. It comes like a spark behind the sprawl of row houses. Blink of an eye, then a stab of heat. I'm one of the lucky ones. Kalechi, as well, we band together. We form a new society amid the rubble. Sylvain comes along with his caravan of aid workers. He's looking for someone. An old professor. Word has spread that the professor knows what caused the explosion. We ring in Kalechi's 41st, on the road to Ground Zero. The facility past the old border with Canada is now an enormous cavity in the ground. We find the professor making camp nearby, much younger than his surviving records indicate. He tells us the Institute was testing a device for entropy reversal when something went wrong. Since then, he's been studying the strange fields that now surround the site. He's seen versions of himself in those fields, talked at length with them, devised methods for communication with timelines where the device worked. One evening, he cautions that there's no timeline inside which we should ever let the Institute take him away, as it would mean the device is about to be triggered for the first time again. In the middle of him explaining that this warning is for versions of us who will receive it as memories recovered, the song concludes. Inside the basement, we look knowingly at each other. There are things we know now that we didn't 5 minutes ago. We have to break the professor out of the Institute. We have to stop them from using his know-how to complete work on the device, freeing us from what now appears to be a self-propagating loop through time. Sylvain winds the record back. What are your thoughts on the story? You can leave us a comment if you go to the Clarkesworld Magazine website. All of our information to contact us is there on the About Us page. We have more stories left for you for April. I do hope you come by and listen should you so choose. Until then, my dear listeners, I bid you a very fond and hopefully very temporary farewell.